Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Netcapital team. Thank you for bearing with us with a couple of technical difficulties here. We're all situated now, and we're so excited to welcome you to a live Q&A with Imotobank and their CEO and Chief Operating Officer as well, Phillip Ibrahim. Before we dig directly into the questions here, I know you guys are coming in. Thank you so much for taking the time. As always, I have a couple of quick housekeeping items. Please do use the Q&A feature built into Zoom here. Sometimes there's also a chat optionality, but we do want to make sure that all the questions go in through Q&A. That way I can track them, and then we can make sure that we get to as many of them as possible. And please do ask those questions. We do want to keep this as interactive as possible. We're here for you all. So please do ask your questions, and please do use the Q&A feature. As always, the companies on the line are actively raising capital on the Netcapital platform. You can go directly to netcapital.com/companies/Imotobank dealership, or you can go to netcapital.com and search Imotobank, where you'll be able to review the offering page. And if you're so inclined, you too can invest and join the team here. There are links to that that'll be available shortly. So with all that being said, again, thank you so much for joining, everybody. Phillip, thank you so much for coming on the line here. Thanks for toughing through. Technology is so funny. It was working just 10 minutes before we went live, and then all of a sudden we had the camera issues. So thanks for everybody for bearing with us. But that's what it's all about, is overcoming obstacles. That's the life of an entrepreneur. So why don't you come on in, Phillip, and tell us about what you're building with Imotobank dealership.
Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. So our company is really about problem solving, and it's really funny that we ended up doing what we're doing today. I was sitting in a $20 million building when I was 26 years old. I had 40 people working for me. It was my uncle's business, second generation. And I had this epiphany. Why do we need a $20 million building to do what we do? It doesn't add any value for the consumer. It doesn't add any value to the automobile we're selling. And at that time, I had a degree in economics, and I said, it just doesn't make sense. So I had a discussion with him one day, and I said, we should just flip this whole thing into selling cars online. It was 2001, and I started to sell cars on eBay. So I was one of the first people to do it, and there wasn't even a category for it. Fast forward to where we are today, the technology has changed. All the things that you see in the world are internet-based, but they're internet based in a very static way. And what we do is we actively have a live computer meeting with our clients. And as we're doing that in real time, we sell cars all over the country in active real time meetings. This morning, I had clients that had only bought cars from me in meetings before, but they were not that far away. And they decided to drive an hour, husband and wife, and sit down with us and actually do a live meeting, which is really interesting. They came here knowing we have no car for them, but they wanted the opportunity to meet because we'd done the last several cars with them. And it's funny because now we have second and third generations. I was thinking of an attorney that I sold a car to recently whose grandfather, father, and now the son and daughter have bought cars from us. So it's an infectious kind of a situation that we're in the car business part because we try to really care for our customers. But I don't think we can patent caring for customers. You can't really sell that IP, so to speak. But I thought about all the problems that we face as independent dealers. So we work out of a 10 by 20 office in an industrial park, and we have maybe 7,500 square feet of fulfillment space, and we have 80 to 100 cars parked on the ground in our facility. I don't want to take on 50 to 100 facilities across the country, not at this stage in the game. I studied waste management when Wayne Huizinga rounded up and did a roll up of all the waste haulers. He went and he raised a ton of money and he bought up each of those and took over. That is not what I want to do. But I liked the model of taking independent people that were running a business and creating a large footprint. And that's what we're trying to do. So today, when you invest in Imotobank, you're reinforcing our balance sheet. And I have no fear of saying that at $1.2 million that we're going to raise here, we can't go and take over the world. But what we'll do is reinforce the balance sheet and take each of the dealers across the country that we want to sign up, which is 50 to 100 footprints across the country, and let them be completely independent, but work under this large umbrella company, which is Imotobank. And what are we going to do? Well, Imotobank is going to take the 50 to 100 dealers and create a virtual national footprint. So every time we deliver a car to Florida or California, which we did over the weekend, we delivered Suburban to Florida, Fort Myers, we don't have to ship it to a stranger. We ship it to our affiliate in the Florida area. They'll receive it, make sure it's ready for delivery, shake the customer's hand, and put it in their driveway and pick up the trade. Now, we do that currently with friends that we know across the country, but we'd like to formalize those agreements. And how do you formalize them? Well, you give them something in return. And so what we'll do is the first thing we'll do is just the low-hanging fruit. You'll take 50 to 100 dealers and take the 20 to $40,000 a year we pay in insurance, pool it into a large insurance pool, and buy reinsurance so that now even the insurance that we pay out becomes a profit center. If we all have an interest in that and making that profitable, we're going to take care of our product, going to take care of our people, make sure that nobody does anything that's going to cause us harm. We'll have probably $1 million to $2 million pooled into this thing every year between all the premiums, and then we buy reinsurance for any claim that's over $1 million. That is a profit center that we just created out of thin air simply by meeting with other dealers and creating this conglomerate. The second thing, in 2021, I went to a local credit union that I did business with, and I said, I'm going to put some money on deposit here, and I want to write my own portfolio. Whatever I tell you to approve, as long as they have a minimum of 25% down, you'll approve it. And we agreed. And if there's a loss, you take it out of the cash I put there. I put in $25,000 and we started writing deals. I didn't advertise anything. We were borrowing the money at a blended rate of 6%, lending it out at 12.99, 15.99, 17.99, and subprime is 22% plus a fee. We didn't do any subprime business because all the people we wanted to put into this portfolio by the general banking world are considered subprime because they have some unusual thing. Either they were an immigrant that arrived with $4,000 and no credit. We found it best to serve those families that came by taking the 4,000 as security and selling them a $12,000 car that would last. We took college students where the parents said we're willing to pay a premium of interest to give our college student a loan in their own name, and we promise you that we're not going to let our kid fall. And they put 25% down. We filled it with that. We had other clients that were just independently wealthy and wanted to borrow money to buy a $50,000 or $100,000 car and let their money work in the stock market or in what other venues they have. And they did that. In 1 year, without doing any other work, our $25,000 was worth $75,000. And those deals we didn't even advertise for. And I said, this is a great test run. Now, here we are in 2025, 4 years later. That portfolio is winding down. We have not had a single loss. We had one motorcycle that we had to repossess and they owed $2,000. And when we called the guy, he said, you know what? I'm going to make payments. I only owe you $2,000. And he's been making the payments, so we never had to repossess it. Here we are opening that concept up nationally so that dealers can all sign and give any of their consumers a loan with 25% down, and they know who's good and who isn't. So these are things that you can't do as an individual. Lastly, we want to take care of a captive warranty company and all of the fintech and software that it takes so that we can effectively share screens and meet with our clients virtually. Everybody who wants to buy a car today is busy. So they tell you they're going to meet you in a week or 2 weeks, and things happen and they miss their appointment. You sell the car. They end up running into somebody and buying a car elsewhere. What we've done is distilled it to a 15 to 20-minute conversation on a live screen share, very different than many of the large nationally traded companies that sell cars. So we're in a moment now where our company can do something that's very unique, and that's the overview. We'll continue to use the money that we can raise to make money here, and we're going to redeploy the profits into individuals that will scour the country looking for our new partners, and we don't want to own the partners. We want them to stay nimble and self-directed, but we do want to unite them financially.
No, I love the way that you want to aggregate, but keep that autonomy and that independence. And I think it's fantastic the way that you think about the customer as a whole. And I think it's really customer centric, which I think has been some of the best companies have been that way. Um, you know, as we dig into what you're building here and how it solves the bigger, broader problem of a really disjointed and frictionful car buying and selling process. I wanted to give a shout out to you have a great team that you've been able to assemble some obviously the technology product on top of a in-person product here. So if you could tell us about other members on the team. I know you have your CTO here, and it sounds like the customer service team is just maybe some of the most important pieces with Nancy and them as well. Could you tell a little bit about the rest of the team here?
Sure, they're actually amazing. Each of the people that work here started as clients, and it's so funny. It started when I started this company. I had no intention of taking it public and growing it. I had a backpack and $20,000, and now we have 17 people that are working. Now, why is that important? It's important to just have a team that's seasoned, and they've been working with us, and we've been growing our team. In 2024, we added probably one third of our team now, and we tripled the size of our physical footprint. But let me introduce you to a few of them. So Nancy, you mentioned, she is now our operations manager. Now, Nancy, when she was in Egypt, before she came to this country about 15 years ago, she was running a factory with over 100 employees, which is very difficult to do in that environment as a lady. And I found that she was just absolutely amazing in her thought and her ability. And when I play chess with her, she beats me, which is really the best trait ever. If the people that work for you can beat you in chess, and I'm not a terrible chess player, I'm not bad actually. I find I always want to hire people that are a little more clever than I am. So she is one of the team members who went from just coming here and saying, I don't know what your business is about. She's now our operations manager, and she manages every aspect of our business from customer facing to the nuts and bolts of how to make sure the cars are fixed at most efficient rates. Our sales manager, Jordan, amazing guy. 5 years ago, he had been selling solar and cutting his teeth as a 23-year-old hardworking door-to-door sales guy. You can imagine that is the hardest business on the planet. And he came to me because he was referred to me. People said, this guy's amazing. You should talk to him. And he has become our sales manager, and he's just hitting his stride. You can sit with him on any given day and watch him. The people love him. He has an infectious joy. He has a loyalty, and it's not loyalty to Philip or loyalty to the company. It's loyalty to doing the right thing every time he has an opportunity. He thinks of his work ethic as doing as unto the Lord. You think about that. It's a really different way to look at things. He starts his day with prayer, and he asks God for wisdom and joy so that when he talks to everybody, no matter how they're doing, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, whether we're talking to our own team, he has now a staff of 5 people that answer to him. Mark, one of my favorite people on the planet, Mark Habib. His brother is George Habib. George is our service manager, along with Joel Cappuccino, and that's his real name, Mr. Frothy Coffee. And then George is Mark's brother. Mark Habib has managed large dealerships, large retail dealerships. He worked at a Nissan dealership, was a general manager. He worked in Lexus at a very high level, multiple management positions. He came back and joined me. He said, Philip, you know that I could be anywhere, but we worked together at the beginning, and I want to work with you now. And he sits right next to me on the left hand side there. He brings a terrific wealth of knowledge. There's not a single thing that happens in our industry in the car business that he hasn't seen before. But he really enjoys dealing in an environment where there's no pressure on the customer, there's no pressure internally. Our only pressure is that we put on ourselves to be the best that we can be. And we have our CTO, Rami Salim, 2 master's degrees, one of them in plastics engineering, one of them in bio, a level of technology that most people would love to have in a big corporation. And we have all of these people in our facility every day trying to make it better and trying to vet out all of our new things because really, when you're a problem solver, you're an adapter. People that go out and invent things, I'm so respectful of them because they do things that no one's ever done before. What we do is we want to adapt existing things in the world to our industry without having to go through the pain of being such a pioneer that you get shot in the back because inventing stuff for me is hard. But what I found is really neat is adapting things. And then the knowledge base that all of these people have built from top to bottom, and including our technicians, we have very unique ways of looking at how to fix things. I don't know if you know this, but one of the neat things that happened is through our customer base, I became an expert witness in diminished values for insurance companies. I testified in a $100 million case recently, and we won the case, and my own name was put into the judgment 4 times. That's very unique. Doesn't happen very often. But why was I able to do that? Because the way that we think of things is not to just follow the herd. It's to be an expert in what we do. And we were able to translate that expertise to the legal world. So we currently have many cases that we look at for different people, and we give them opinions through our dealership. And it's really an interesting thing because we think differently than the traditional people, and we hope that that's going to translate. And every person that works here is very uniquely suited to do that kind of independent thinking and empowered to do it. I don't care if you make a mistake along the way, as long as your decision tree and it had some logic to it, and that it could be followed by somebody intelligently until we get to our end. And everybody's empowered to do that. Even the youngest salesman on day one, we ask them to become prepared to be the CEO. Because on any given day, if you're left alone, you need to know how to make decisions. I recently dealt with some traditional car dealers, and I was so disappointed. They are running their titles and their decision making process from 6 states away. And the person locally couldn't make a single decision to the point where I was looking for them to deliver a title on a vehicle we bought. It took them 3 weeks to decide to make a duplicate title because they'd lost the title. A local person would have figured out it's the second day to make the duplicate, and our title would have been in our hands. So these are the kind of things that we want to continue. Hire people that can make decisions, hire people and empower them, and don't be afraid. And we want to be able to do that on a very large scale nationally, because having a national footprint doesn't mean having 50 physical facilities. We could have somebody working out of their home in Omaha, Nebraska, which we actually have. One of our people lives there now. He's an engineer, and he works out of his home part time. It's terrific. He buys and sells cars out of his home in Omaha, Nebraska, and they deliver all over the country using our fulfillment facility.
No, and that's such a great testimony. And I think, the way that you've assembled your team tells a lot about who you are, but you kind of glossed over yourself a little bit, Philip. So we got to take one step back. And I know you've sold over 5,000 cars in your career here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, if you don't mind.
I've actually sold about 20,000 cars. When the bio was written quite a few years ago, we were trying to be a little humble at the time for some strategic reasons. We didn't want too many people to figure out what we're doing and get ahead of our first mover advantage. But I have sold more than 20,000 cars, and it's quite an interesting way that we got there. Um, my mother's an aerospace engineer. My father's a mechanical engineer, and I studied engineering before I finished with a degree in economics. And my uncle had a car dealership in the 70s. And at the time, banks wouldn't lend on a used Mercedes, but they would lend on a brand new car. They didn't want to do that. So he figured out how to lease cars, and he created a leasing company. And he continued to adapt and innovate, even mechanically. When we had a problem with a certain car that you needed to remove the head out of it, he was one of the first people to put air into it to hold the valves up so you wouldn't have to remove the head. Turned a 26-hour job into a 4-hour job. And in the car business, all of these innovations became mainstream. Almost everything that our company has done has become mainstream, but we were doing it 10 years earlier. My personal background, I'm a unique situation. I told you my mom's an aeronautical engineer, my dad's mechanical, but my grandfather was a pastor for 60 years. And my father now has since retired from engineering. He is a full-time pastor at our church. And I would say that 60% of our staff either attends our church or has attended our church. Pastoral duty is to bring people together and unite them under the moniker of, God's love and Easter coming up this weekend. We can't say the car business is that important. So our first devotion is really to love our neighbor as ourselves in the work that we do. It just happens to be that we're in work that requires trust. And if you trust our company with your car purchase and you trust our company with financial investment, we'll pray and do our very best to give you a good return. If you want to know my history, it's that, I grew up in a home where I was loved, and every single thing that I touched, starting at age 2 years old, my father would explain to me in detail, or my mother would explain to me in detail, the molecular structure and how it integrates into the rest of the world. When I went to college, I went to Calvin University, one of the greatest schools anywhere. People don't realize that this Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, tells you on day one, integrate your faith in all the work that we teach you how to do. That's who I endeavor to be. And when I fail, I always say that God uses broken people and God uses mistakes and fixes them. And it works all the way down to the biblical level. David was the king of Israel, and the Jewish people are just wonderful, dear friends of mine. And God used David, who had been broken in so many ways, and eventually the Messiah came from his lineage. And whether you believe it or not, it's not requirement to work here. We have people that are atheists, we have people that are Christians, we have people that of all kinds, and we want to work with all kinds of people. There's common grace for everybody. But that's who I am. A person who has a technical mindset. I will dig deep into everything that I do, and I'll do it to the best of the gifts that I have. And when I make mistakes, I'll try to fix them. And if I can't fix them, I'll bring people alongside me that will help me fix them. And in fact, people ask me, why raise $1.2 million on Netcapital? Why not go to a bank? I'll bet if I knocked on enough doors, I'd probably be able to get an SBA loan. I get really good credit personally. But if I don't bring people alongside of me that can help us propagate this story, help us take a stepping stone so that later on, if we want to get on NASDAQ or one of the big boards, you got to start someplace. And for me, Net Capital was the best outcome. We really enjoyed doing business with you folks. Everybody at your um, company has been terrific, but it really creates an opportunity for us to put a legitimate SEC FINRA approved registration where the public can get to it. And so that's who we are. We've come down a path where we want the public to create community. We want to create community with dealers across the country, solve all the small problems that they can't solve as individual dealers, but we can solve as a massive conglomerate. We want to be from the top down able to make decisions on any level. And we want to continue that idea so that we can sell cars. And that's really it.
No, thanks for sharing some of those details. Fantastic team. I love the energy that you bring to this, your passion, your purpose. The way that you think about things has clearly led to something. And I'm grateful that you've allowed us to partner with you to allow everyday people to join you along this journey. Your emphasis on community and the way that you really treat the customer first, that has showed up in some pretty exciting successes today. Not the least of which is right around $15 million of sales in 2023. Can we talk about some of the other really exciting successes you've been able to make up to this point, and then maybe we can start looking to the future in a little bit?
Sure, sure. So up until now, I mean, we have a very simple model. We don't want to do something that's crazy. We want to test and we want to do simple things, and then we want to be able to create that opportunity nationally. So right now, on any given day, if you call into our company, you'll find 80 to 100 cars on our website. These are cars we physically touched. And what we've done is we've been able to translate each one sale into 2 to 3 sales. So it creates financial leverage without having to risk. So most car dealers, they mark their success on what we call a 90 or 120-day turn. So if a car dealer takes $1 million worth of cars and they turn all of that money every 90 days, then they should do $4 million in sales in a year. We are using about $1 million of working capital right now, and we're doing 15 million. That means our turn is probably close to 21 days. We're not actually turning every single car that way. What we're doing is we're filling orders off of the cars that people call in for. So it's a unique model that takes extremely detailed thought process on how to do it. And that's the thing that we're going to share with our other partners so that we can grow exponentially. The other thing that we do that's very unique is we started with a backpack and 20,000 bucks. There's not many people who have ever taken a company from cradle to grave in this fast of a time. Most people, when they do that, they are inheriting something or starting with a much larger footprint. Starting with $20,000 in a backpack and growing to 15 million in sales, you see a lot of bumps along the road, and you're able to innovate and go through them, around them. We try to make it as easy as we can. We currently have 17 people. We have in 2024 tripled our fulfillment space. We added one third more manpower, and we began to see third generation clients. And so all those things are great things. They kind of validated. And now we're the first car dealership in the history of the world of our scale and size to ever go public on Netcapital. That's a huge and unique thing that no one else has ever done. And so you'll find that through our history, we were the first on eBay, we were the first on YouTube in '08, we were the first in fulfillment on simulcast, buying cars remotely from the auctions and stopping to fly there. And now we're the first to ever take a company public in our size and scale in the automobile business that I'm aware of. So these are milestones we've hit all pretty recently.
No, so grateful for that. And obviously, while you get to remain public through our offerings, it is kind of a community round, which has that public feel to it, which I just absolutely love. But actively still a private company, just to clarify that. And I do think that when you talk about these fill orders and the way you use technology to kind of get that return on capital, is super exciting. Can we dig a little bit longer into your business model? I know there's a couple pieces to it as well in terms of licensing and relationship building and then what you've been able to do. But can you talk a little bit more about the kind of the broader business model when you work with these independent dealerships?
Yeah, so currently, everybody in the automobile business has a two-tiered marketplace. There's a retail marketplace where the public can go and they can shop, and you'll find those all over the internet. But the public has no protection when they buy a car independently. You go into the dealership, you can tell you it's the nicest thing on the planet, but at the end of the day, if there's a problem with it, once the car passes state inspection, there's very little teeth to the lemon laws and things like that to protect the public. Our history has been satisfaction guaranteed. We really go out of our way to make sure that we've done everything we can to guarantee the customer satisfaction. We don't sell bad cars unless we have a customer that just absolutely is very impossible to deal with. Most of our customers are extremely happy because we sell good stuff at a very good pricing. It's very important to recognize low overhead is not just a mantra that we talk about. It's trying to be creative and using technology so that the cost of doing business stays low. Most competitors, Carvana, CarMax, have massive overhead, and they can't do what we do nimbly. If the market changed and they had to take a smaller margin on their cars, they would fail. Our company is nimble, and by hiring and finding partners all over the country to put underneath our umbrella, we stay nimble because each of those individuals continue to run their businesses the way they always have, but we add a component to them that makes them more profitable. So that's what really is unique and different and current about our business.
And that actually kind of sets me up for a perfect segue here because you mentioned Carvana and some of the other larger, players that have this like massive footprints and really high overhead costs. And you don't have to name any other players specifically, but when you think about the competitive landscape and other players in this space, how do you view the analysis there in terms of you talked about not being able to patent compassion and working well with your customers, but are there some elements that are IP protected, or is there other moats or defensibility that you have, or do you just fit into the ecosystem in a different way that allows you to perform in this market?
It's hard to describe exactly what it is that we have for a special sauce, but I'll take a shot at it. So when a client reaches out to us, the biggest differentiator between us and the majors is that we are an active participant in the transparency and immediacy of their decision making. So you may go on a static website and look at 20 cars over and over and over again. And that gestation cycle between looking the first time and closing a transaction is long because the consumer is about to spend $25,000 without any guidance. They keep wanting to hit that button to buy the car and saying, well, what if it's not what I want? What we do is we actively guide the client and we do it transparently. We say to them, this is what we can offer you. Today, when the client came in the door, she wanted to buy a Forerunner. And I sat with her and I said, the premium on Forerunners right now in the marketplace is very high. For some reason, they're getting a lot of money for a used Forerunner, almost to the point where it's not enough of a difference between a new one and a used one. But I dug into her needs some more and I said, you have probably more need for a Lexus GX 460. And believe it or not, a 1 or 2 year old Lexus GX 460 was the same cost as the Forerunner. And we sat and we analyzed all the different cars, whether they're the Forerunner, the Lexus, or anything else that met. And she was able to see how much better of a transaction she would have and a better outcome by buying the Lexus for herself. Nobody does that with their client on a static website. You just look at a car and you decide to buy it. But you buy one car every 3 or 4 or 5 years. We buy 3 to 5 a day per person. So we have some insights. And it's really terrific. Like, it's tremendous. Imagine if I have 50 or 100 dealerships that are thinking along that mindset and they're actively able to meet with their client remotely with technology and close deals instantly. The customer calls in often and says, hey, Philip, I'd like to buy a car in 2 to 3 weeks. What can we do? Look at this. And we start to look. In 15 minutes, 30 minutes after we're on a conversation, they buy a car and they say, I didn't think I was going to buy a car for 2 to 3 weeks. Unbelievable. Now, that's what makes us very different. It's an extremely different mindset. Can I patent it? I don't think I can patent it, but I certainly can tell you that it's not how everybody else does the car business. My entire staff, my entire team does it that way, and there's something to be learned from that. And if we were able to connect with 50 to 100 entities across the country that want to learn how we do this, they're going to succeed. We're going to succeed. Now, how do we succeed longer term? My long term thinking is our company is going to own the cradle to grave things that no one else can own because you need somebody to own the financial entity on a large scale. You need somebody to own the warranty company on a large scale. You need somebody to own the insurance on a large scale. You need somebody to own the financial technology and the software. That's what our company is going to own. And that's why if you invest in our company today, our expectation is that the returns are going to be massive. We're not talking about just a couple of dollars here and there. We're talking about a success that breeds best of class nationwide. And that's a huge return on investment for anybody that gets in on the early side of that, assuming that we're successful. And I believe we will be. Otherwise, I wouldn't sell the shares.
No, I think that's clear. And I think, you're absolutely right. The goodwill that you've been able to engender is an incredible asset. And that comes from your white glove, full service, taking care of the customer, kind of compassionate thought process in the way that you engage with these folks. So although maybe it can't be protected, it doesn't look like it's very easily replicated either. So I think that's fantastic. Um, you talked about scaling for a couple dozen dealerships to hundreds, thousands. I mean, I'm not sure how many there are in the United States or the world. And this application doesn't seem like it's uniquely American. Can we talk about how broad this market can be, the total addressable market, and what you imagine you might be able to accomplish in terms of growing market share?
There's 36 to 38 million used cars sold in the US alone every year, another 19 million new cars. So let's start by the simplest thing. There are very few facilities or car dealers across the country that have a national footprint. We've talked about a couple of them, but they're unique to their own insular world. Our company intends to be the last mile delivery system nationally for everybody. So we're going to start by having our 50 or 100 points across the country, which will make it so much more trustworthy for somebody in California to buy a car from Massachusetts. We have a unique Porsche. I got a call for it in Texas the other day. And I want to be able to deliver that to my guy in Texas to deliver to the customer with a handshake and then own them as a service customer forever. Imagine for a minute that we don't just open that up to ourselves. We're not insular, but we start doing that for everybody. A retail customer that has a car for sale and wants to deliver it will use the Imotobank network to move the car across the country and have somebody shake the other person's hand on the other side. We can do a guarantee that the customer who's buying the car doesn't get defrauded out of their money, make sure that the car and the title go back and forth to everybody the way they're supposed to, and we get a small fee revenue. Those kind of things are the direction that we're trying to get to, which is a big national conglomerate that's nimble. We don't want to own every piece of brick and mortar. We want to create an integrity profile that is where the consumer gets comfortable because our name is on it. And how we're going to fund all this? I've been asked that question a million times. So once we reinforce our balance sheet and deal with our local growth here, and we start to sign up dealers underneath our conglomerate, we're going to be offering them tools and capabilities so that they can raise their sales quickly and at a marginable rate that's incremental, but still enough to really be worthwhile. And our deal with them is going to be this. They're going to put a little bit of money from each car they sell into a pool, and that will be the agreed upon structure. That is, they're going to be buying shares with their money in the major corporation that owns all these entities. If you think about every dealer that signs up buying shares in our entity, the investors across the board benefit because there's a constant buy-in until that dealer is ready to retire and then sells off their shares. So the total addressable market of cars is 38 to 40 million cars units, and you make between $1,500 per car, which is much lower than the advertised people that are out there telling people we make $5,000 to $6,000 a car in their quarterlies. It's not true. They're really not doing that. They're fooling with the numbers. But if you make $1,500 times 40 million units, there's plenty of money to be made there per car. And then when you take and you start thinking about our footprint and how you can have fee structure that helps the consumer and others move cars across the country, there's an opportunity there. And then, of course, the overarching opportunity, which is the fintech, the software, and owning these cradle to grave things of finance and insurance that no one else can own as an individual dealer, but we can own as a conglomerate.
I love that, and that really kind of helped me. I think that will really help people understand your growth strategy. We talked about some of the successes you've had today. That really look to what to expect in the future, what the goal is, what the plans are for the future. I do want to do a reminder for folks, and thank you so much for everybody engaging in the Q&A feature here. You can go directly to netcapital.com/companies/Imotobank dealership. You can review the offering page there. There's a bunch of materials in there that are being shared here by Phillip now. Once you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and push button invest through there, debit card, credit card, ACH wire transfer, and you'll be able to process your investment and join the team here directly there. You can also go to Netcapital and search Imotobank, where you can learn more and, of course, participate. But I really like the way that you imagine every piece of the puzzle, from the investors on Netcapital to the dealers that you're working with, all of them being able to buy in and grow with you. Seems like an incredible emphasis for your company. I think that's really exciting. As we get to the last couple pieces of the conversation here, I really think you did a good job talking about what the future is. I'm always kind of reluctant to ask questions about exit strategy because the future is just so inherently speculative and uncertain. But you talked about the goal to grow essentially larger public offerings. Maybe there's an acquisition opportunity down the line. How do you envision folks that are investing through the portal to get a return on their investment? And again, this is uncertain by its very nature. But what do you plan?
It's very speculative to say how we're going to get to the end. Here's the vision that I have, and it's a moving target to some extent. Imotobank takes the 1.2 million today and uses it immediately to make money for our company on the local level. The profitability bump from having another million. I mean, we're using about $1 million and doing 15 million in sales. You give us another million. I'm not going to say we're going to double it because we don't want to do that immediately, but maybe we go from 15 million to 24 million in sales, and maybe our profits go up by 60%. Using that money, we can fund individuals to go across the country virtually and then eventually in person because we want to touch every single person we sign up and say we like them for sure. And we're going to sign up 50 to 100 dealers. That's easy. That's really not hard to do because we're not asking for anything other than if we succeed for you and we give you tools and you make more money, that you buy shares in our company. Those dealers are buying shares on day one for every car that they sell. That's it. And then we take the gross sales figures, which are going to go from 15 million, which is current, to the aggregate of 50 or 100 dealers that are signed up. Because now everything flows through us on a financial basis. It's not hard to see us doing 500 million to a billion in 12 to 18 months. Because now you're signing up 50 dealers that are in our scale, and that just immediately scales up. So if you take that 500 to a billion, 500 million to a billion, and you go to either a large bank or warehousing line of credit, and we take that opportunity to borrow money on that scale so that we can fund our operations and fund our inventory. Every dealer currently is funding their inventory in unusual ways. Either they have floor plans. Now, where does the floor plan money come from? I've already checked this out. The major floor plan companies have their own bonds floated on Wall Street, and they're paying somewhere around 5.5% for their coupon. We want to float our bond, but instead of running it through a middleman, which is the floor plan companies currently, they're selling the money back to us at 9 to 12%. We're going to sell it internally. And so each of those dealers is now going to be borrowing money from their own company. Think about just those aspects alone, which is really simple. You sign up 50 to 100 dealers, you aggregate their flow of gross sales into one entity. You take the entity to Wall Street, say, these are our dealers. We want to float our own bond. And now we're going to borrow their money at 5.5%. We're going to lend it internally at 9%. And the spread stays in the umbrella company, which is what people are now investing in, Imotobank. And so that's one way. At that point, whether it's the warranties or whether it's this or any of the other things that I've already said, and I don't want to say them over again, that company becomes profitable, very, very profitable. It's profitable now, but it becomes extremely profitable. And at that point, either dividends will start flowing out to the consumers that are the shareholders, or a private equity or Wall Street offering will buy out all the originating shares, and the company goes to the next level. But the reason I set it up the way I set it up currently at a $15 million valuation, not because I'm greedy, because if you set it up at a small valuation, everybody's going to get diluted. Everybody's going to fall apart at the seams when we go to the next rounds. I needed to set it up at a scale, $15 million gross valuation and raising 1.2, so that when we go to the next part of this, the next iteration, everybody who bought in today has an opportunity to get a 5x or 10x return in 24 to 36 months if we go to plan correctly. And that's the hope and dream. And that's the exit strategy as I just discussed.
Killer, killer. No, that's super cool. Very thoughtful. I see the engineering parents flowing through you and the economy background showing up as well, economics. Um, as we wrap up here, I always like to sneak in a question here because obviously we're talking about raising capital. And of course, everybody can go and invest and join you on that journey. But lots of folks also have additional ways that they can support the offering. So I want to ask, Philip, outside of cash, what folks that are on the line right now or people who might join and watch this on YouTube later, what can they do to help support you and the business get to the next level here outside of cash?
Share our information so that people will know about us, whether it's if they need a car or they would like to invest, share us everywhere so we can go viral. We need that because a lot of people we share with, they don't have 10 or 20,000 or $100,000 to put in. We have some investors who have. Our average investment currently is about 3,500. Not bad per person. But share it with everybody and encourage people to even take a small step. I mean, 1,000 people with $1,000 investments, $1 million. So I'm super happy there. Share a company that if you need to buy a car, try us. help us to have a shot at the opportunity to deliver a car to your door. Give us a try. And third, pray for our company. My prayer every day is that God would give me wisdom to run this company well. My prayer every day is that our people that work for us stay healthy and safe. And today, as I was working with the customer, I was praying, Dear Lord, if it's the right car, help them to be happy with it and let me know that so it's the right one for them. And if not, help me to find them the right one. That's our prayer every single day. And it starts at the grassroots level. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. People say you're so grandiose in thinking. No, it's not. It's very straightforward. One bite at a time, work with us, share our information with others, make an investment with us, and we will succeed together because every single company that you see, even Apple, started in a garage someplace.
Well, I know dang sure where I'm getting my next car. So yeah, definitely take Philip up on that if you're in the market. And I love the idea. Get the word out there. If you're not in the market and you know someone that is, please share. And I think you're absolutely right. That what we've proven, I think, through Net Capital is that every investment counts and they do add up. We aggregate them together, but every investment stacked together it turns into can be a really meaningful sum of change. So last little bit here, closing remarks. Why is now? I think you really kind of embraced this throughout the conversation, but just bringing it home here. Why is now the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in Imotobank dealership?
Well, it's kind of a hedge against everything else that you do. Everybody can invest in the stock markets and the capital markets pretty easily, but it's rare to get into a company at the early stages. And that's a hedge against the rest of the world going up and down and crazy. Our business, we make money when the economy is strong because people are upgrading and buying fancier and cooler cars and Porsches and really nice fancy cars. Our economy also does really well. The most money we make is when the economy is dying because we're so much faster than other dealers. We're nimble. And you want to be a part of a company that repairs cars and sells cars in an economy downturn. Now, I don't know whether we're going up or down, and I'm not that smart. But I can tell you when we go up, we make money, and when we go down, we make money because people take their fancy cars and trade them in for other cars. And because we're so fast, we're able to turn those cars quickly without markets changing. Car dealers get in trouble. Big, lumbering, giant car dealers get in trouble when the economies change and they're carrying 1,000 cars and they're not turning them for 90 days. Then the economy changes and those cars all depreciate on their books and they start messing around with their books to stay alive. We turn quickly, and we're able to do that quickly because we're a low overhead company. We can survive on a smaller gross profit, and we can survive in tougher times and still be profitable. You want to be part of that as a hedge in case things don't go the way you expected them to.
Bravo, Phil. Incredible way to bring it home. I don't think we say anything else from there. I want to thank so much all of our attendees and your thoughtful questions in the Q&A feature. I always want to thank our panelists here. Philip, thank you so much for coming and sharing about what you're building with Imotobank. As always, this has been recorded. It will be uploaded to YouTube here shortly. You can go to YouTube and search Net Capital. It'll be right there available for you. And if you missed anything or you know somebody who probably could have benefited from hearing about this message, please feel free to share it. We'd love to get the word out there and encourage folks to consider joining the team here and reviewing all the deals available through Net Capital. So with all that being said, thank you so much for joining us, Philip. It's a pleasure hanging out with you always. And I look forward to the next time.
Eric, you're the best. Thank you so much. Let me know when you're coming to visit Boston.
No, exactly. I'll be out there soon. Yeah, next quarter. I'll give you a ping.
Please do. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
God bless. Bye.